all I can remember was how hard it was to sing, which, for me, at least, was a first. I was choked up and wearing a horribly thick mask, so breathing, naturally, was out of the window. I was also wearing one of the most uncomfortable shoes anyone could ever purchase, and I had purchased them not once, but twice. I had on one of the ugliest costumes I had ever been given, and the music was way too quiet. So I had no clue when we were supposed to start singing. Now, with all the negative descriptions I've given you, you would assume I hated whatever I was participating in, which is fair, but no. Being a part of the theater program in my high school was a total fluke, but it was one of those movie moments where it was the most perfect fluke to happen to a person. I was describing above the last time I ever stood and sang on a stage in a costume as a part of a cast. All the seniors from my school were asked to sing the song Crossing a Bridge from the musical Anastasia, which we were performing. We had practiced the lyrics halfway between Where I've Been and Where I'm Going, what felt like a million times. Those were the lyrics where we split into our harmony groups. But somehow, when I looked at my closest friends for the past 4 years of my life, I forgot all of that work. This is a lot to get into for the first paragraph of this essay, so we'll get back to the beginning. My best friend lives catty corner to my house. I promise this is important to the story, and because of that, her family comes over to my house all the time for dinner because my dad loves cooking. Usually, these nights would erupt into an impromptu and horribly long game of Uno. Our record is 2 hours. I won that one. Or half of us would bring one of the many instruments we could play and sing until we would bother our neighbors. My parents had this rule that both of their children had to be able to play at least one instrument. My brother played guitar and I played bass and ukulele. One night we were listening to Valerie by Amy Winehouse, and my best friend's mother looks at me and says, "Hey Emma, you should join the choir. They have one for freshmen, right?" And I looked at her like she was absolutely insane. Me? In a choir? Yeah, that's a huge no from me. I'd never entertained the idea of joining a choir. Well, cut to maybe not even a week later, I was asking the one friend I had at the high school where I knew no one if they wanted to join the choir with me, because there is no way I was going into the beast alone. So I did. I joined the choir. That friend joined me for like 3 months and then quit, but to each their own. Now, we're gonna get to where the theater program gets introduced. I was sitting in the second row of the small choir where we were shoved into in late January. My teacher says the words that changed my high school life forever. The spring musical needs more people to be in the ensemble for their trip to New York City. Would any of y'all be interested? To say the least, I was pretty interested. I shot up from my seat and took one of the many flyers she had for the trip in her hand. So yeah, my love and dedication for musical theater only started because I really wanted to go to New York City. I wasn't originally supposed to actually be in the school performances, just an extra voice for their trip. My choir director thought it would be easier for you to learn the songs if you were added to the cast and went to rehearsals. To this day, I'm not sure if she did not want to teach me the songs or she was pushing me to meet more people. I don't care if it was the former or the latter. Either way, I joined the cast. I was a proud factory worker, lovely lady, beggar, and a drunkard. A part of the cast of Les Miserables. All roles that were completely ensemble parts, but I was so happy to be a part of the program. The New York trip turns out to be completely disastrous. The flights to New York City were canceled, so we went on a bus for 15 hours. The huge group was waiting in the Newark airport when we heard the flight for 12:45 a.m. for Louisville, Kentucky has been canceled. It was like a geyser erupted. There were so many tears. Before those fateful words came over the PA system, our flight had been delayed and undelayed roughly 7 times. And those words meant we were sleeping on the floor of the airport. After all that, any rational human being would assume that I would stay as far away from musical theater as I could. But no. In fact, that summer after Les Mis, I signed up for a summer intensive. Every day from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., except for Sundays. For 3 weeks, I was stuck in a dance studio with no air conditioning, only weak fans, and which smelled distinctly of old shoes. To this day, the friends I made in this intensive joke about how close the experience made us. Godspell was basically a blood bond, yeah? Is normally how we describe our connection. I remember the first time I cried on stage. It was the first show I ever had done, the one that got me into theater, Les Mis. I'd only been a part of the cast for roughly a month. We were singing Epilogue at the closing show. I was not expecting it, but as all the cast was marching on stage, I was surrounded by the loud footsteps and the music blaring from the orchestra. I felt the tears start to pour down my face. It was almost surprising to me, because I went from laughing at the idea of joining a choir to sobbing in front of the sold-out crowd at my high school theater. A 180 if I've ever seen one. The theater program became a complete escape from the parts of high school I could not bear to deal with. All I would have to think about was how quickly I could get a sandwich from the deli before rehearsal started, or how I was supposed to do my hair a certain way, or figure out how to wear a wig, or where to buy character shoes. Those are the shoes I was talking about at the beginning of the essay. The ones I had to buy twice because I ripped the strap off my first pair. It was a world where I could explore and develop my musical talents, and where people would always keep me company and love me unconditionally. March 13th, 2020. This date probably looks familiar to a lot of people. It was the day where everything was shut down because of COVID-19. For me, this was also supposed to be the day where we opened the show, our spring show, Into the Woods. All the cast was sitting in the parking lot of the theater, and of course, it was raining. We were supposed to have a mini rehearsal before opening night. We were sent home because of the torrential downpour. When we got home, we received an email saying something along the lines of, "The spring musical has been indefinitely pushed back," which allowed for some semblance of hopes in the hearts of the cast. However, maybe 24 hours later, they sent an email saying, "The spring musical will no longer be in person." Well, I was crushed. To say the very least, I was crushed. It was the first show I was ever cast as a lead, and here we were. I still remember the day we had to go collect all of our belongings from the theater. I walked in, tears welling in my eyes, and grabbed my bag stuffed with makeup and costume pieces, walked into the green room to say goodbye to the directors, and sitting on the table was a box of cookies that were decorated with the faces of the characters from the show. I collected myself, I went to look at the set one last time, and I left the building. Once I sat down in the driver's seat of my car, the tears flowed freely. When I came back from my senior year, they announced they were doing in-person shows. I knew I would do anything to be in that space again. So I did. I auditioned for both shows that year. We did Bye Bye Birdie and Anastasia. I did not care what I had to do or what role I had, just that I would do it if I was able to be in the theater with my closest friends all over again. So that brings us back to the beginning again. The final song almost felt like a ceremony. Crossing a bridge, please. What more obvious symbolism could you have for us all going to college? Still, as sappy and as cheesy as it was the best way my journey could have ended. I still love to sing. It's one of my favorite pastimes, but I like that I left that part of my life on that stage with that song.